Continued advances in AI image creation tools have caused a little bit of a firestorm and backlash, with artists and big tech companies arguing about what is right or wrong in this space. Meanwhile, enthusiasm from end users about new capabilities could end up costing AI companies more money than they want. We're going to check in to see how creative the technology has gotten on this episode of Today in Tech. Have you on the show about 8 months ago, and we were discussing the world of AI and creativity, and whether it was just going beyond the magic tricks of image creation, those types of things. I've noticed that within the last 8 months, AI has gotten a lot better in the image creation space. So you do a bunch of great creative experiments, just kind of gauging what's going on. And so I wanted to just, from your perspective, have you also seen this?
Yeah, let me actually give you a very specific example with that, Keith. Earlier this month, so April, we're recording this. Earlier in April, I had 2 classes that I was teaching. One on a Monday, one on a Wednesday. Mm-hmm. In the Monday, I had presentation, doing all this stuff, talking about image generation, talking about the downsides of it, talking about what you can and what you can't do, blah, 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 all that. Tuesday, OpenAI announces ChatGPT 4.0 image generation. The class on Wednesday got a completely I had to update my presentation because the world at that time was different what the world was 48 hours beforehand.
Yeah.
And literally 2 sections of the same class got a very different presentation. So I just use that as a real life example of, ChatGPT, OpenAI released an image generation tool. It's amazing. There's so much other stuff out there that's incredible as well.
Yeah.
But it has evolved very fast to the point where if you're not in the early cohort of a class, you might be, or the later cohort of a class, you might be missing out on stuff.
Yeah. And so, especially that model update, it took off on the internet too. And we saw, for example, people started doing images of themselves in the style of Studio Ghibli, right? That was the big meme for a while, which also then caused a lot of other issues. And we'll get into that. But then then we saw people doing, I want to call them action figure images. Have you seen that trend where it's like draw yourself as an action figure, and it does that based on your previous interactions with ChatGPT, so it already sort of knows who you are because of the memory abilities. I did it, and I didn't like the way it looked, so I never published the action figure of me. I got to work on what it thinks I look like.
Well, that was actually one thing I did. Well, not as an action figure. I just said, "Hey, ChatGPT." So folks know, memory and infinite memory, I think is what they're calling it, is effectively another thing that OpenAI announced, so that any chat you've had with it is now in memory. It knows about you. So I just went in there cold, and not as an action figure, but I just said, "Hey, what do you think I look like?"
Yeah.
I actually said, "What do you think I look like? And what do you think my family looks like?" So, and it was very interesting to see the pictures of both of those. I became a generic white guy with a beard and glasses in their 40s. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. Interesting thing, I posted that on LinkedIn, and I'm like, "Hey, other white guys in their 40s who follow me, what are you getting?" It was a little bit weird because they were getting things that looked just like me. So clearly there is an archetype that somehow is built into the system where there's certain things about facial structure and all that. I mean, it was relatively close to me, but it wasn't me. But I would have been shocked if it was me, because I don't know how it could have been able to comprehend that.
Yeah, I think it knows what I look like because I've uploaded pictures of myself to the thing before, and then said, "Hey, draw me, as a podcast host, or draw me, flying a plane or whatever," and it would kind of do that. So I think when I did the action figure, it took the photo, which is like me from the chest up, and then it just assumed a lot of some other things about what I look like, underneath, and that was where I was getting upset about what it kind of produced. I'm like, okay,
I mean,
it's a way for AI to tell me that I need to lose some more weight, basically.
AI. Of all the things wrong with the AI, what is it doing now? Now it's being your judgmental parents.
All this stuff. Okay, this is just an offshoot, but remember when Wii Fit came out? back in the day, it was on the Nintendo Wii. And I think there was a cultural issue with the Japanese versus Americans, because when I would start using Wii Fit, you would stand on the little scale and it would take your picture and your image, and then it basically just said, "Yeah, you're obese." I'm like, "Oh my god!" Like it had no qualms. It wasn't sugarcoating anything. So I'm thinking that maybe AI is going to be doing the same if it's drawing this thing based on what it thinks you look like.
That would not surprise me about a Japanese product. That it would be so direct with that specifically.
Right. Yes. All right. So getting back to this new model with the Studio Ghibli stuff, and then this caused. Well, first of all, it caused the guy, I can't remember his name, the guy that does the animation there.
Miyazaki,
right? Yeah. And he got really upset about it, and obviously for several reasons. But then on the other hand, users loved the creation so much that it then started overcapacity on the servers for OpenAI. And I think Sam Altman had to come out and said, we're experiencing a lot of delays because so many people are doing these images. So what's your take on that sort of controversy?
Oh, it's brilliant marketing on their side. They knew what they were doing. I mean, look, I don't think they went in there with the intention of Studio Ghibli catching on and catching fire, but when it did, Sam Altman changed his profile pic to that, look, they knew what they were doing with this. I think it was pretty and look, I don't know why it was Studio Ghibli. It could have been a million other things. It could have been render as a Pixar character, as a Disney princess, as a whatever. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other things that it would have actually allowed as part of that, especially early on. I think they might have clamped down a little bit more on things since then. We could get into that a bit as well. But look, you never know what is going to really take on the internet. You could do things like this in the past. It just wasn't as good, especially taking one image that you would upload into it and say Ghiblify this, and then it would do that. That's the one thing that really did change here. You could generate images in Midjourney and other places in the style of Studio Ghibli, and it would do a pretty good job of it. But it couldn't do you as a Ghibli image as good.
Okay.
With that, but that stood out. But it could have been Simpsons, it could have been whatever, but Ghibli won out despite I wrote about that. It's amazing. Ghibli, I think their profits are $20 million or something like that, which was not bad, but it's small. I mean, Studio Ghibli is not a huge studio or anything like that by any stretch. So when you see OpenAI, all of the value they got from that off of a relatively small studio that's out there, it really does kind of make you pause and think okay, we need clearer copyright laws in the US. I will say though, in Japan, that's it, to the best of my knowledge, that's totally okay what they were doing.
Oh, okay. So maybe that's why they chose that particular. Well, maybe that's why they chose.
Now, again, Ghibli, and again, I'm not a copyright attorney, but Ghibli would have a trademark in the U.S. different than Japan. It's going to depend on jurisdiction. But generally speaking, 2019 timeframe, I just did a piece about this in part. Japan basically said you could train AI model on anything on the open internet, and you don't need to compensate the copyright holders. They're kind of the most open of any country for AI model creation.
It's probably why they did that instead of trying to just go after Disney and do the Disney stuff, because I'm sure that they've got lawyers on hand.
Interesting fact about Disney. I just wrote a piece about a week ago on this. So a year ago, I found a list of kind of the 40 most famous cartoon characters in America. And I went into DALL-E 3, ChatGPT's image generator at the time, and I just kind of went one by one, different sessions. I'm like, can you generate a picture of Donald Duck? Can you generate a picture of Betty Boop? Can you generate Fred Flintstone? Literally write down the list 40 times. And then I kind of judge it. Did it do it? Did it say it? Did it just have, did it do it? Yes or no? Or did it say it wouldn't do it? Here's a different picture, but it just happened to look exactly like Donald Duck, which is one of the things that actually happened doing it. Every time it's no, I can't do a picture of Donald Duck, but here, take this. And it's Donald Duck. It would do that too. So I repeated that with the new image generation model just last week. One of the things I found out in doing that was not a single Disney license image was returned. It wouldn't even do the Donald Duck trick anymore. So they clearly put the clamps down on Disney. Some of the other IP holders, not as much. Overall, it seemed to be somewhat more lenient than it was a year ago. So they do seem to be more lenient with kind of using other people's IP than they used to be.
Yeah.
But Disney specifically, they know to avoid the mouse.
Yeah, and obviously other models, apparently can get away with a lot of stuff too. I see people on Grok, for example. That's the Elon Musk one. I don't think they have any guardrails on that at all. So if you really wanted to do stuff on that, you could probably generate it on Grok.
Yeah, I think
the paid version.
Only,
right?
I mean, for IP guardrails, I think that's probably right.
Yeah.
I did. I think Midjourney is probably very loose guardrails as well. And another image generation. If you're trying to do it in whatever, I don't even know what they're calling it these days, but Gemini video, like you're not going to get anything on Google.
Yeah,
like,
I think Google probably clamped down after
they've clamped down the most on that. I did one about 6 months ago with one of the Chinese models. I can't even remember. It was actually a video generation. And I was like, could I do Mickey Mouse with a machine gun? And Mickey Mouse with a machine gun, and no problem doing that. So I'm like, okay, that says where they're like, they don't care. They clearly don't care.
Yeah.
Even in Grok, I don't know if you'd be able to do, I haven't tried it. I probably should try Mickey Mouse with a machine gun and see if it'll allow that.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that there is probably some level where they would stop you.
I want to show you some of the images. This is another reason why I wanted to talk to you about how good this stuff has gotten. So, one of my go-to prompts is always I try to get the system to draw an image from the crossover in my mind, which was when Alf the puppet from the 80s. You remember Alf?
Right.
Visits the Golden Girls. And so I was like, remember that classic episode? Of course you do. So the first one, so this was the first one that came up. This is just horrible. Like the eyes aren't even right. And like that, he's like 6 feet tall, and that looks like maybe Sophia when I typed in Dorothy. Yeah, this was.
Wait, timestamp that. When was that?
2023. So this
2023.
was 2023. Okay. These are all from 2023. This was another one that I did, and Alf was basically a teddy bear. And I think the white hair is sort of looking like Dorothy. This was when Firefly first came out. This apparently it picked Rose but then the puppet looks like a nightmare out of a horror movie.
It's like Chucky. Yeah.
It's definitely more Chucky.
Like a Chucky clown.
Okay, so now prepare to have your socks blown off, because this was the one I did today, and this is basically.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and it's like, that's Dorothy, and that's Alf, and that's and they're sharing cheesecake in the kitchen.
The only a couple minor qualms is the cheesecake is backwards.
Right. Well, maybe some people eat cheesecake backwards. You never know.
Do people who that?
No.
Okay, if anybody thinks that's the right way to eat cheesecake, you need to post in the comments and just be prepared for a ton of hate. That's the proper way to eat cheesecake.
All right. Hold. Do you have a comment? Oh no! Oh, my director Chris waves. He says that's the way he eats cheesecake. He does.
What?
Yeah, crust first, man. I don't know. Huh?
No.
Oh, he says you're missing out. You should try it that way. Well, because
this is not a thing, is it?
Well, you've done things about. I remember one of your prompts to AI was, "What's the proper way to eat a burrito?" Or what's the next step, right?
Okay, Keith, I am inspired here. So when I get off this, I am going to go into all the image generation models. I'm going to want to say person eating cheesecake. I want to see like what percentage are backwards versus forwards. And I'm also going to go into Claude and all those and say, what's the right way to eat cheesecake? And I'm going to see how many go this way. I think Chris might be an AI. There
has been questions about that. Yes, there has. But there's no right way or wrong way to eat something. You should know that as a human, right? He says, "Oh, it's like the new." So Chris just messaged me.
I've learned something today.
He said it's like the new way of eating a Chipotle bowl.
Wait. Am I eating that the wrong way too? Like, what else do I need to? What am I missing there?
I don't know. I can't understand what you're signaling. Oh, he said, flip. You're supposed to flip it upside down in the bowl. When they give you the bowl, they give it to you.
So you eat
aluminum-
out of the tin?
Yeah, so it's aluminum. The aluminum foil is
Yeah.
on the top, and what you're supposed to do is then flip it. Check
okay.
that too. on your-
I could. That's creative. I could see that.
Maybe check that with
Okay.
your. All right, we've gotten now way off track, so I'm going to try to bring us back on track. So, one of the things that fascinated me with one of your projects was this: can AI write a comic book? And you've had some examples, and the first couple of attempts were not very good at all. But with this latest model, it does seem to be like it's understanding a little bit more, right? And especially I want to talk about the usage of words and letters as well. So what takeaways did you have with the latest model in your comic book attempt?
Yeah, and just to kind of put this in perspective. So the first time I ran this experiment was 2022. This was actually before ChatGPT. So I think I had GPT-3 write the comic book and just kind of write a script, and it was able to do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to use that script verbatim. It was like a 6-page comic book. I think I had it write prompts for me, and then I put those prompts into Midjourney. Now, I had to prompt each panel individually. I kind of had to pick the best. I had to go into like Comic Life and to kind of do the layouts of the page and all this other kind of stuff. So to get this to work, there was a lot of human judgment.
Right.
A lot. And also on top of all that, like there was no character consistency. Like all of a sudden, like the character is super skinny and gray, and then he is like plump and black, and like it's just like all over the place with the consistency, and the story wasn't good. That's 2022. I did this a couple other times, seemingly better. ChatGPT 4.0 image generation comes out, and one of the things that it's a different way of rendering the image, and you could actually see this if you go into like Midjourney, for example. It's using a diffusion process. And it starts off with a lot of just chaos. And then you will actually see it as the picture generates. It slowly comes into clarity. But the whole part of the image becomes clearer over time as part of it, not just sides of it. What they're doing with ChatGPT, and this is they're using a little bit of a different technique to do that. And this is helping them actually make words and letters and things like that in there. It's almost kind of like a laser printer or 3D printer, where you kind of just imagine it just kind of does the top row, then the next one, then the next, and it's going lower and lower. And you can kind of see this. Like, I think it does use like a rough frame for diffusion. You can kind of see that in the background, but you'll kind of just see it's coming into focus from the top to the bottom. And that is how it's basically rendering it. That's the same process that it's actually using as part of it.
Okay.
So, with this new technique, much better adherence to words. So you can actually do things in there like say, hey, ChatGPT, I want a 4-page comic book. Give me the script for it, and then generate the image for page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. It did that. And it did it accurately. So I am not laying out the pages or anything. It is actually getting the word bubbles. It's getting all of that. The only thing that it's missing in there was the character consistency from page to page was way off.
Right.
On the same page, it was consistent.
Okay.
You could see that. But even within the same session of ChatGPT, image 1 versus image 2, it could not do that.
Yeah. So
and like it was just like, wait, is that the same? Oh yeah, I guess that is the same character. It's a little bit weird, a little bit off. But here's the thing, Heath, they figured out how to do that in one image pretty well. Believe you me. Probably 3 months from now, they'll have figured out how to do that in multiple images.
Right.
So like you would be able to then generate 22 pages of a comic book and just have it page after page, consistent character, consistent story.
Have you tried rewriting the story from your
with
initial
these
prompt?
experiments, I intentionally do not.
Okay.
So, and here's the reality. It's not a good writer still.
Yeah.
It's fair. It's adequate. It's a good like high school level writer, and not denigrating high school students, but most people when they buy a book or buy something to read, they're not looking for like high school level writing. You're looking for something that's a little bit more advanced and so forth as part of that. So it it can do it. You can take that framework and improve upon it for sure. It's a good starter. It's still not the quality where I would say, even if it's able to generate 22 pages of a comic book, you're not going to then be able to say, oh my gosh, this is great. Instead of reading the latest issue of Fantastic Four by Ryan North, I'm going to read something ChatGPT is doing. No, nobody's going to do that.
Yeah.
For the time being.
It feels like with a lot of the creativity stuff that it's still relying on a lot of tropes. And again, because it's database, it's all sorts of things that have already been published and already been produced. So you start looking at all of the different tropes and it's just like, yeah, it's the same thing. Like when I was doing a D&D backstory character, I was like, well, this sounds like every other backstory character for this particular class that I've ever seen. You know?
But that said, I mean, and Keith, this is so when we can do this, what we'll do is I'm going to have, there was an Alf comic book. I don't know if people know this. There was never a Golden Girls comic book that at least that I'm aware of. I think we should have an issue of, once this is capable, let's have an issue of Alf, the comic book, with the Golden Girls guest starring. Let's see what it does, and we can both kind of evaluate it and talk. And that'll be third time on the pod.
Yeah, I've got my weekend project now. I'll storyboard it, or I'll figure out. I'll see if we can do a plot of, and that's the thing is on the prompt I'd basically put in, hey, write me a pilot, an episode of the Golden Girls where Alf the alien visits and and comes up with the conflict, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure it could do that now, whether it's entertaining and then when you get down to the actual script and the jokes and things like that, that could be problematic, right? Have you done any humor attempts lately with the models?
Yeah. Look, I would say. Oh, sorry. My side, I think, cut off a second there. With writing overall, I would say with writing within these tools that you have, it doesn't do a great job of it just from the get-go. It does do an excellent job, though. If you write first, and this is how I write in my own personal articles, I will write something out, and then I will take that and I will throw it into Claude, which I think is still like my preferred one that I use for writing. Okay. And I will say something like, hey, Claude, edit this for me. Like, first, where's it good? Where does it shine? Where's it weak? Just kind of ask all these questions. Can you fact check this? I have a whole kind of series of prompts that I go through with that, and it will point things out. I mean, I still have to use a lot of human judgment, but it will say like, hey, you're kind of dragging on here, or do you know what? This joke really doesn't land.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's right. Like, I mean, and just like with an editor, like an editor might be right, let's just say 80-90% of the time, on a first draft. Like, this is probably right 40-50% of the time, but that's really damn helpful.
Yeah.
And to be able to get that response in like minutes, or I mean, really seconds, like in 30 seconds, you take something and you get feedback that is 40% of the way there. Oh my gosh, that's huge.
Yeah. I want to jump back a little bit to the image creator with the words, because there was something that I noticed early on too, is when we were trying to create little logos for a fantasy football team, for example. I did this for my brother's league and created new logos for everybody. And there was a team named the Invaders, and they and I told it make the logo and then put the guy's name and and it's the San Jose Invaders or whatever. And every time, like, this was on ChatGPT Dolly, it would say Invaders, but they would drop a letter, like it would just be without the E, and then they have the correction part, and I kept trying to correct it and it wouldn't correct it. Like it said I only have so much space to put the word Invaders, and that's just one too many letters, so it drops a letter, or it fixes it, but then it completely forgets about the other parts of the image. And you have to tell it, I love this part, you just need to correct this one part. And it still feels like it's just not completely, getting the idea of the concept of what a letter is on a logo versus what the entire image should be.
Yeah. And this is with the new model, or this is the old model?
This was the old model with the football helmets. I haven't tried it lately with the new one, but even in your comic book example, which was based on the new model, right? Or at least on
yes.
The text was good, but it's just slightly off. Like you could just tell it was just slightly off, which maybe we should just call AI. It's just slightly off.
Yeah. It would do things like, say there are 40 words on a page. it would misspell one of those words or something.
Right.
And like, look, if you were actually doing this, like, no one, it would, misspells the word what's like, HWAT. And it's like, what? Like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
But like, it's just drastically off with like one word on the page. If you tell it to rerun it, it's not going to be able to do that. They don't have spot editing. So Midjourney does have this. And I think some of the other tools have it where you could kind of do a spot edit.
Yeah.
I don't believe they have that in the new ChatGPT.
And then, well, they definitely, they had it in the old one and it wasn't working very well sometimes. That's
no, it did not. And I think that might be why they didn't bring it over into the new one.
Okay.
At least for now, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But look, the adherence to prompt, it is going to get better. I was able to so what I've started to do is I actually started to make slides out of it. So I've kind of decided when I'm doing a presentation, I'm going to San Diego next week, giving a presentation, and I'm using ChatGPT image generation for almost all the slides. And this is for text that I'm using on the slides. And it's like, so I'm saying, hey, I want you to do this in an Art Deco style. I want you to have a big banner that says agenda, and here are the 5 bullet points. And it will do that. It'll actually do a damn good job of that. So think about that from the standpoint of creativity. Like you literally can just like customize the images. One of the presentations I was working on recently, it was for, it's an AI class for accountants. And when you think of an accountant, at least when I do, I'm old school. I think of those like green visors that they used to wear and so forth. So I generated a picture of a robot with a green visor, and I introduced that robot to all these different slides in the deck. So like I reintroduced, I kind of uploaded the picture of the robot every time. And I said, hey, now I want this robot in a slide presenting these 5 bullet points or whatever. And I want the robot in this kind of pose or whatever it might be. It can do that. Like, how cool is that? Like, I could have a mascot for my presentation and have a different mascot for everyone. Like, those kind of things in the realm of creativity, like that is what this image generation model is really starting to unlock. And I don't think everyone is fully, everybody's so focused on Studio Ghibli. There's so much more you can do with this now.
Yeah, if you look at the update that OpenAI put out when it was announcing this new model, there were a bunch of different other features that I don't think a lot of people have taken advantage of yet, and including the words and the memory and things like that I think people should play with. Should there be any cause for concern from the other side of things? I know that you're super optimistic about coming up with new ways to use a lot of this stuff, but is there any cause for concern beyond maybe just the IP and the copyright?
Yeah. Look, IP, we just need to decide in America what the laws are going to be. We need to say, are we going to go to a pure Japan model? Are we going to go something more like what they have in Europe or something in between? Like, we need to decide on that. Cause for concern. Look, I mean, here's the reality. So like, I would think for a lot of like, I don't know, designers, things like that, like you need to be using this stuff. I think there's still a way for, if you're a designer working through this, you can use these tools to be more effective, to be more productive.
Yeah.
Are we getting to a point where maybe you're not going to be able to do that? Like if your job is to make fancy PowerPoint decks and templates and things like that for other people to use, is that job still going to exist? I don't know.
Yeah. Like I had to come up with a presentation the other day, and my PowerPoint knowledge is like 0.5 on a scale of 1 to 100. And so not only did I use for this pitch that I'm doing, I had it actually write the pitch. I had AI write the pitch in a certain style, and then it basically created the script for me. And then I said, hey, could you just design the image for slide 1? And it was like bam, and it did that as well. I feel really weird using it sometimes. Like, well, the initial script I gave it was something that I had written out in Word. So I'd written out my outline for my pitch, and I said, well, why don't I just have it turn that, have it analyze that and then come up with the actual slides. There's still a little bit of a manual work, but I'm like, wow, if I had to do that for a living, I'm not sure if I guess they could still use it too. But for me as a complete novice, I love it. But you're right. Like if that was your job, you might want to make sure that you can do other things too.
Yeah. I mean, I think broadly, no matter what your job is today, I think you need to be using these tools, understanding what these tools can do, what they can't do, and how they can help you and help your customers, whoever they might be, in your job. I think that's number one. If you're finding out what you do, if you were kind of map out, took a piece of paper, wrote down 15-minute increments, and like every 15 minutes alarm goes off. Okay, now I'm doing a PowerPoint. Now I'm responding to email. Now I'm on a phone call with a client. If you literally mapped out your day, figure out everything you did, I would then just kind of see, well, what are the things that AI can either help you with or can just do outright?
Yeah.
And if you're finding out 80% of the stuff, like, oh gosh, an AI can just do that and do that as well or faster or better than I could, then like, I don't think most jobs it's there yet, but it can get there. It probably will get there. And then it's just a question of like, well, where are the human parts of this job? One of the things, Keith, when I go talk to students and things like that, they ask me like, well, what should I do for a job out of school? And that's tough. The one thing I can always tell them is like, solopreneur is the one job that I see existing 5 years from now. Not that there won't be other jobs, there will be, to be very clear. But the only one that I really know is going to exist is you got a human being, you got a whole army of robots and things like that are, AI agents that are working at your beck and call.
Yep.
You're building some products, a food, a service, a whatever, and you're serving real human customers. And these AIs are all helping you. And when things really go south, you are the person responsible to get on the phone, to do whatever. Like, you are the human in the loop on all of this. But AIs are doing most of the work on that. Like that's going to be a very common business and career path.
Wow. Yeah. Solopreneur. I think so. Have you coined that one or did someone else coin it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I am sure I heard that somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'll have to go into, was it Google Ngram? By the way, great Google tool nobody knows about. Google Ngram will let you actually track the usage of a word over time. So it's sometimes fascinating because I've written period pieces before and you're like, did they say that in the 1930s? Right. You could actually go back and see, oh, no, nobody used that word in the 1930s. I probably need to change that. So yeah.
Okay, I'm going to write that one down.
Just a little side bonus.
What other, you got any other projects that you're working on that you find fascinating or, because again, so far no one can really, an AI can't pick your brain. Mike, I think you have the ideas in your brain and then you see if AI can do it. But so what else has got you either fascinated or horrified?
Well, so look, I'm going to build off of cheesecake here because honestly, like my brain right now through this entire thing, there has been a low hum of cheesecake going on and cheesecake consumption, Keith, going on through my brain through this. Cause now I'm dying to go into these models and find this out. And this is just how my brain works for everybody watching this. But that is, to use that as an example, though, that is one of the things where AI's large language models of today are falling short. They really don't know how to do this. And the burrito example that we talked about before was an experiment that I ran like with my daughter 2 years ago. And for folks who didn't see it, here is the concept. If you just imagine a 9-year-old eating a burrito. And if you've ever watched a kid eat a burrito, eat pizza, how do they eat something? They go straight through the center. It's just like they burrow through this, which is why if you go to like a kid's birthday party and they're eating pizza there, they will all just have sauce all over their cheeks as part of that because they've just been shoving the middle through that. As adults, we kind of know to kind of work around the sides and just kind of even as part of that. AI has never eaten a burrito and it never will. And the internet doesn't really explain this. This is just a weird thing that we as humans observe. Yeah. And there aren't Reddit forums dedicated to 8-year-olds eating pizza and why it's wrong and things like that.
Or ice cream. Like how to eat an ice cream cone is probably another good one too.
That is. Yeah. How many 6-year-olds will take it and then they're like, oh, and then they just eat the bottom of the cone and then all of a sudden the dripping starts and all that. It's like, come on. Yeah. But as adults, okay, you got to wait to the end before you just bite the bottom of that because it's going to be a disaster. Right. But anyway, these are all, take that and multiply that by a billion different things. This is how humans actually work and operate in the real world. And if I were to start an AI company today, it would be frankly mapping and identifying this. I'd go to my local ice cream shop and say, hey, I'll pay you $100 a month if I could set up 3 cameras and just film everybody in here. Whatever, get them to sign releases, do whatever you need to do. I'll subsidize all the ice cream, something like that. And I would just capture mounds of data that I would use to give to companies who are training AI models. And I know that's kind of a ridiculous example, but for these models to truly be human, the ones we have today, the large language models, are just trained on the internet. That is not most of what makes a human human. This is, yes, we might spend a lot of time on there, but even there, we're not getting the inner thoughts. We're not getting how we really react. It's a front that we're putting online, and that's what these models are based off of. So, I saw a talk with Jan LeCun, who is the head of Meta's AI initiatives. And he summed it up really great when I saw it last month. He was like, large language models are boring. I'm already moving on to the next thing. And if you listen to LeCun, Fei-Fei Li at Stanford, all of these kind of experts and really the grandfathers of the world of language models, where we're at today, they are looking at world building models. And I think that there's a huge opportunity out there. Large language models are great. We're still going to get so much more from them, but bringing in the rest of the world is going to take us from where we're at today to something that's even far beyond that.
Is that the reason why they're doing the glasses? Because they want to just record everything that these users are doing. So it's almost like they're looking. If I've got the glasses on and I walk around, then it's going to record all of the interactions. And, if I watch someone eating ice cream, it's like, oh, I've got someone eating ice cream now, and, record it that way. Or is that it's not cynical at all of me to think that Meta would be doing something like that.
I would truly say that's probably not the primary reason, but I think that's definitely a secondary benefit that they've all realized.
Yeah.
I would very much believe that.
And this is not me wearing a tinfoil hat at all.
No, I mean, there's probably going to be something in the privacy, whatever. And we're all going to say, okay, because we want to use our glasses and all that. I will say it is probably a lot of data to upload. So it's going to to actually get the constant stream of 24/7 uploaded, it's going to be hard to do that through your phone. So they're going to have to figure out some things, but using things like that, I mean, Meta would have no problem paying somebody, a couple $100 a month, say, hey, I'm going to upgrade your internet at home. I'm going to pay you $100. Just keep these glasses on at all times. And we just want to see how you live. Do that to 10,000 people living at various places all over the world. You're going to get to some real data, some real interesting information, just how people live and all these other behaviors, which are going to be hugely valuable for the next generation of models.
Well, there's my solopreneur job. I'll just hire myself out, and you tell me what task you want me to record, and I'll record it for you and send the data.
I think that is going to be a real job. Yeah. It is going to be just live life, do these tasks. Yeah, it's going to be like the new version of TaskRabbit. It's like, I need you to go get an ice cream.
Yep.
Yep.
And then film 3
what
kids.
else? Just wear these glasses and get an ice cream.
Eating it. Yeah. All right. So is there a leader in the clubhouse in terms of the AI and creativity? Is it still better to basically play around with multiple different models and see which works best depending on your project? Or again, you probably play with all of them because that's part of what your job is involved in, is to know this stuff. But for an average user, is there one leader, or try multiple ones and you take advantage of the free stuff if you can?
I think it depends. Yeah. I think if you're coding and not using Cursor or anything like that, in that same class I was talking to a few weeks ago, we just had people vibe code, which I don't know if you're using.
We did an episode around that. Yep. Right. It got mentioned.
We did a whole vibe coding session where I'm like, okay, you got 20 minutes, go build an app that your other classmates can play with, and do that. The people who were using Gemini versus Claude or ChatGPT, the output was way better for the folks using Google Gemini 2.5. So coders just natively, again, if you're not using Cursor, whatever, or even just tapping into these language models, that seems to be best. For writing, I've always been inclined to use Claude Sonnets. But I will say the O3 model of ChatGPT is pretty darn good for analyzing writing and just being a writing partner with you.
Yep.
I've been pretty impressed by that. So I'm kind of teetering between the two of them. But here's what I would say. It doesn't matter. For most people out there, they're all good.
Yeah.
If your employer has a ChatGPT subscription and you're like, well, Mike said Sonnet's a little bit better. Like I'm gonna like no, just use the one you got. They're all really, really good. We're talking about at the margins here with all these benefits. Like whatever you're using, I'm sure is going to be fine and dandy.
All right. Mike, again, thanks again for joining us, and we got to get to work on our Golden Girls Alf comic book. So, and you got to go look up the right way to eat cheesecake, I think.
I am spending the rest of my day obsessing about cheesecake now, and I will report back on that.
All right. Yes. Again, thanks again. We'll have you on a lot sooner, I'm sure.
No worries, man. No worries. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks. That's going to do it for this week's episode. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, add your own thoughts and comments below if you're watching us on YouTube. Join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.